concerns and all the privacy stuff within the internet. So thank you very much for staying with us, and go ahead, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Juan.
See?
So this is the privacy session, that you have in all industry events. So, well, you could ask, why do we have every time this privacy session? What's new about privacy? I think that we are facing it's a major subject for the industry, because right now the regulatory status is that after, let's say that in the 2 years to come, we will make decisions on a regulatory standpoint that will define the universe in which we're going to play in the next 20 years. So it's very important and it's very crucial. So I'm Alain Levy, I'm the CEO of Weborama, a European leading ad technology company, very much focused around data. And I'm also a board member of the IAB in France, chairman of the TASC, the Ad Serving Club, and as such I'm representing these organizations when dealing on privacy matters with the government. And I'm also the writer of a book on privacy called Sur les traces de Big Brother, Tracking Big Brother. The presentation today aims at giving some insight about privacy. Why is it such a big subject today? And it's much beyond an ethical matter. Of course it's an ethical matter, but it's also one of the most important business subjects that the industry is facing today. Then try to define privacy. Then spend some time on two major misconceptions about privacy. And we'll end with talking about where we are now and what's happening on the regulatory side. The digital industry accounts for 3.4% of GDP. That it accounts for more than 20% of the growth in Western Europe and also in the US and other countries. That for each job lost because of digital, you have an additional 2.6 new jobs that are created. So all in all, it's a major industry which is so important in these difficult economic times when we need desperately growth. So growth comes from digital. Then, what's the business model? I mean, this industry is so crucial, and everything is free. I mean, search is free, social is free, gaming is free, music is free, everything is free. It's not exactly free because there is a trade-off, and all this is financed by advertising dollars or euros or whatever. So the advertising money is the key to the development of this market. And for advertising to be efficient on the web, you need targeted advertising. And this is something which was already, something that was seen by this man back in 1994. So this is Edwin Arzt. He's one of the big and legendary CEOs at Procter & Gamble. And this is what he said back in 1994. We can target not just demographic segments, but individual households. If a family has a newborn baby, we can make sure they get a Pampers commercial. This is the marketer's dream, as expressed by Edwin Arzt in 1994. And to make this dream come true, we've come a long way in these 18 years with data at the core of the development of the business. So we have today so much data available, so smart ways to turn this data into marketing value for advertisers. We've developed all the technology, all the tools around this data, so that we are now in a position to send the right message to the right person at the right time. So obviously, every time we talk about data, we are going to talk about privacy. But we need to stop here and rewind. I mean, if we don't have a proper access to data, then it is very difficult to make advertising relevant. And if advertising is not relevant, it won't be efficient, and it won't provide the lifeblood to the digital industry, which itself is so important on the economic scale, on the worldwide scale, for the growth. So we're dealing here with a major, major subject. So we talk data, we need to talk about privacy. Privacy is not a new subject. I mean, this is, we're talking a lot about privacy in the past few years, but it's been a huge matter for time. There's nothing new. Just the scale has changed, but privacy, I mean, let me remind you, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this is back in 1948, and there was an article which reads, "No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks." So, protection of the law concerning privacy is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, let's try and define privacy. So I've read a lot about the subject, and I think I came up with, I mean, the definition I prefer is involving 3 values. It's very short. Secrecy, quietness, and autonomy. So these are 3 values that, in my opinion, perfectly define privacy, and we should be entitled to these values, of course, in our everyday life, but of course also in our digital life. So it's very important that we can keep some areas whenever we want, and we want to be in control, to keep things secret, to be quiet, and to decide, to make our own decisions, to be autonomous concerning our decisions. So once we have defined what privacy is today at the digital age, then let's fight 2 misconceptions. And I think this is very important because these are 2 arguments that we are facing every time we're talking about privacy, and we need to be able to destroy these arguments. First misconception is the internet is Big Brother. It's very tentative, it's obvious, and who in this room hasn't had a dinner where we say, this is what I'm doing in my everyday job, and someone says, I understand, you're Big Brother. And it's not so easy, because this is something that spreads out and that's really hurting the industry. So let's go back to what Big Brother is. I mean, Big Brother is a character in a 1948 novel by George Orwell that you have read, 1984. And he's a dictator. And he's a dictator that's using technology to manipulate his people. And he's using 2 technologies, which are very similar to the ones we're using. First of all, screens. Big Brother has these telescreens which are everywhere in your life. They're in your home, they're in your bathroom, in your living room, they're at your office, and it's following you. Big Brother is watching you through the telescreen. And this screen has 2 features. Number 1, it's always on. And number 2, it's giving you instructions. And it's giving you Big Brother's instructions. So obviously we have screens everywhere. We have screens, like in the novel, screens are everywhere. But the major difference is we decide to turn it off or on, and we're giving them instructions. So we should be very careful when comparing the presence of screens in 1984 and today. The other technology is language. Big Brother had developed a language based on words, on the natural language, and is simplified. Basically, you had no colors. Something is white or not white. And the objective is to limit and to narrow your thinking and not give you opportunities to let your imagination flow. Of course, it looks like the Boolean language we're using when we're surfing on the web, but what a difference. I mean, when we're surfing on the web, it's opening. We're opening to science, we're opening to knowledge, we're opening to information, we're opening to media, to pleasure, to gaming. So let's not compare the new speak developed by Big Brother and the language we're using to surf on the web. So this misconception is total, and the internet is not the new Big Brother. Then the second misconception: users are sheep. They are gregarious animals, they don't think, and you can take them wherever you want. They follow the shepherd wherever he wants to lead them. And this obviously is also untrue. I mean, the users have shown that they are very powerful and that they can bring any big companies to change their decisions. Look at Facebook. A few years ago, with their Beacon project, they came to the market and said, my friend advertisers, I have this great database, and it's all yours. And the very same day, there was a huge reaction all over the web. And this reaction was buzzed through Facebook and everywhere. And it was so strong that it took only 24 hours to Facebook to back up and say, wow, sorry, we were not aware of what was going to happen, so we stop, and we'll come back with another proposal. So users are not sheep, and if we want to compare user and use an animal metaphor, we should use the bees. Because, well, like the bees are flying from one flower to the other, the users are surfing from one website to the other. The bees are taking home some stuff to do honey, while the users, with their clicks, are developing the honey money of our industry. But the most important thing, perhaps, is that the other function of the bees, when they're going from one flower to the other, is they're taking pollen. They're spreading life. They're allowing the reproduction of the flowers. And the same way, the users, when they're indexing, when they're forwarding, when they're posting, when they're tweeting, they're making the web so much better. They're giving the value of the search engines. They're strengthening the assets of social networks. So it's so important. And the power of the users is much bigger than one would imagine. Einstein was saying that if the bee would disappear from the surface of the earth, man would have no more than 4 years to live. It's probably exactly the same on the web. If there is no trust, if the user is not behaving in an environment where he feels comfortable, when he has secrecy, quietness, and autonomy, then he can stop doing what's so important in his business, which is making the web more indexed and a better place for search, social, and all the services. So once we've said this, what is important today is to build an environment of trust. And it's particularly challenging when we have so much going on around privacy and so much of these two misconceptions spread around in the media. We need to fight this, we need to explain, we need to educate, and it's our role. I mean, each and every one in the industry should be convinced that if we want a sustainable business, we need to fight this privacy subject and build an environment of trust. So number one, let's not this misconception spread around the web. And number two, let's take our future in hand and build this environment of trust. How can we do that? We had, in '95, there was a EU directive saying we want the users to be in control and informed about data. And we had until end of last year a process where this directive had to be transposed into local regulations. And it was a long process, lots of discussions with the various governments, and I would say that the industry did pretty well, because in the end, we have regulations which are really well balanced. I think that we can have whoever wants to have access to their data has an access to information, opt-out and everything through the browser, and they can control. And at the same time, the industry can develop. So I think we did pretty well at transposing this regulation, this directive into local regulations. Right now, we just finished with this process and there's a new regulation coming up. There's a draft from Viviane Reding's office at the European Union proposing a new framework for data protection. So it's obviously a major issue because it means that in the 2 years to come, we need to come up with an agreement with a new regulation and that will apply for a long time. So it's now that we need to solve this problem. The main objective of this regulation, when you read it, is probably aimed at social networks and all the personal data approach. But there is also an attempt to bring the cookies, the IPs, and whatever tools we, the industry, are using into the same personal data environment. So this is something crucial, and this is something which is happening right now. So 3 things. Number 1, the cookies. For some reason, the industry and the regulators are focusing on cookies, which are nothing. We read that there are spywares, we read plenty of bad things on cookies. They're just a tool, and they're quite inoffensive. However, we need to make sure that we, as an industry, have the tools to develop. So one way to look at it is probably you have personal data on the one hand, you have non-personal data on the other hand, and all the cookie, IP, and this kind of information, for the time being, we don't know where to locate them. If this kind of data, the data that you store on the cookie, are they personal or not? Maybe there's a new way, which would be to develop a new kind of data, which corresponds to the data that the industry is using. So this would be proposal number 1. Proposal number 2, which is an industry proposal right now, and which I'm worried about, is to either do not track item within the browser. So it's a list of websites and of companies that are susceptible to track you, and the browser is sending you the list, and you have to pick and choose. So obviously, do you want Google to track you? Do you want Facebook to track you? Well, if I say no, I don't know what I'm going to lose on my search and on all the Google services or on my social network. Whereas all the B2B companies, which are in the same list, I don't know them. How can I have an opinion on them? How can I make a decision? It's like asking someone when he's buying a car, where do you want the clutch disc to be produced? Who does even know there's a clutch disc in the car? So I don't have an opinion on that, and I think it's not fair if there is not a proper education to ask the user to make these kind of decisions, which are important, because all the B2B players, which are making the industry better, which are making advertising better, which are making advertising more efficient, and therefore less embarrassing and less invasive, the user doesn't know them and it doesn't have to know them. So there's a lack of education here. I'm much more in favor of the IAB Europe initiative called Your Online Choices, which basically is informing you through an icon which will be on all behavioral ads. This is what behavioral advertising is. This is what it's made for. This is what is useful, basically what I said as an introduction. And once there is this education, then propose a list of companies. But before you opt out, which is the outcome, you educate. Well, Weborama, here is what we're doing. We're collecting this data. It's strictly anonymous, and so on. So each player has a chance to inform and educate their user before they make a decision. And my deep conviction is that the user is perfectly aware that he's giving away his data against all the free services he's getting, and that the trade-off is much clearer to him than it is to privacy organizations. And to my knowledge, there hasn't been any complaint from any user concerning the use of their anonymous data. So this youronlinechoices.com initiative is a European initiative. The industry is backing it, including Google, including Microsoft, including Yahoo, and all the B2B players. And I hope that this is going to be in place by the summer. It's right now being implemented in the UK, and it should be implemented in other European countries as well. And this is a great example of an industry initiative that is a solution to this major privacy issue. So, as a conclusion, I would say that we've come a long way in the progress of solving the privacy issues. I think that the diagnosis is pretty clear on why privacy is so important, but it's also clear that the data which are in the heart of our industry are critical to the growth of our industry and therefore to the whole global economic situation. Mr. Edarst, at the conclusion of a big meeting in 1994, had the following sentence. The advertising business may be heading for trouble, or it might be heading for a new age of glory. Believe it or not, the direction up or down is in our hands. In the last 18 years, we've built the infrastructure for targeted advertising, for a super smart media planning approach, with the exchanges, with all the bidding tools, with the real time. That's been a huge investment in terms of R&D, in terms of capital, in terms of technology, in terms of education. It took a whole generation to be able to handle all these super sophisticated tools, and we're now technically able to bring the marketer's dream into reality. We have a few obstacles to overcome. One of them is to sort out and to bring a solution to the privacy issue. I think that we've done a lot, but we shouldn't underestimate the coming period where we are going to make a decision and we will define the shape and size of the field we're going to play in the coming years. So it's an essential negotiation which is going on right now on a government level, on a European level, and at the privacy organization level. We, as an industry, should take this in hand, and I'm convinced that we're going to overcome this situation and solve this major issue. And if we do, there is no doubt that all of us in this room and in the industry will enjoy in the coming years the new age of glory of the advertising business. Thank you very much. I'm all yours for questions if there are any. Come on, no questions on privacy? Well, thank you very much.
Alain, I
Yes,
have
you have
a
one.
question. So are there any differences in the way that in Spain all these privacy regulations and practices are being done compared to the rest of Europe? So what's the case specific for our country?
So I would say that we had the first negotiation on the European level. European directive, each country has to transpose. So each country came up with their own regulation. And it's been a mess because it has taken so long and we came up with so different regulations. And I would say that European, in the end, I mean, at some point in time, no one agreed. In the end, all countries have agreed to privacy settings to be controlled within the browser, which is the basic outcome of all the negotiation. Only one country was different, and it's not Spain, it's the Netherlands. Netherlands said, before you drop any cookie, you need to ask the user. At one point in time, Spain was not far from that. But in the end, only the Netherlands came to this. It was a year ago, and they just backed up because when trying to implement, which anyone could have forecast, they came to the conclusion that it was not possible. With the new regulation, there will be one regulation, one regulatory frame for Europe. So it will be decided in Brussels and applicable all throughout Europe. Right now, there is a consultation with all the governments. So the draft has been issued, and each government should come up with their comments. But in the end, there's going to be one law, and it won't be different in Spain or in any country.
Okay.